you wish you could just go and shake someone up and say, look, what you're doing is not good practice. It was just so difficult. Finally, I just wanted to talk about my own experience of learning about my own bad habits. We're on a mission to become the UK's largest sports coaching company. What we had is this teacher who was just so stuck in their ways. They didn't want to change. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first Let's Talk uSports, the place where we as coaches, as sports educators, as PE teachers, have a place where it's quite relaxed, just talking about children's sport, our experiences, the challenges we're facing, any news that's coming up, just talking about the realities of what it's like working in the UK with children, trying to give them a positive experience in sport. Our first episode today is all based around bad habits. And we've seen it before. You might even have some yourself, but those bad habits that you see sports educators have, and sometimes you wish you could just go and shake someone up and say, look, what you're doing is not good practice. Try and change it. And I'm going to be talking about some of the bad habits that I had, some of the experiences of how I picked up bad habits, how I've moved away from those bad habits as well. And just wanted to give you guys a chance to maybe think about your own coaching, your own teaching, and how you could maybe improve your own style. Now, I'm really passionate about this sector. 13 years I've been in it, whether that's coming from work experience or teaching after school clubs and lunch clubs, leading into PE lessons. And after 5 or 6 years working for a number of different sports coaching companies, I was awarded my UEFA B. Really went down the football coaching route. Had all my youth modules. Actually did my PES level 3, my PE and school sport level 3, and I was on this journey to become a academy football coach. Wanted to become the next big thing in sports coaching, in football coaching, and it was just so difficult. There was so many hurdles along the way, and I just felt my passion sort of moved into sports coaching rather than football specific. And obviously working in primary schools and working within the PESPA sector, PE, school sport and physical activity sector. I just wanted to, I got this passion for it and wanted to move forwards in that direction. After working for my sixth employer, I left and set up uSports. And uSports from there was just me with a bag of footballs doing one after school club a week. And what happened is it just grew and grew and grew. We're in over 100 schools and nurseries, got over 130 coaches working with us, and we're on a mission to become the UK's largest sports coaching company. But less about me. Let's get back into it. So, in our main topic today, we're going to be talking about where the bad habits come from. And bad habits, to me, could be anything, whether that is coaches putting their hands in their pockets, whether it's lines not being put down properly, or a gymnastics lesson that doesn't include any visual demonstrations, just habits that people pick up over a period of time and haven't been able to adapt and move forwards and move out of those bad habits and turn them into good habits. And for me, bad habits come from a number of different places. The first one being experience, and you can be on two sides of the spectrum, if you ask me on that one. The inexperienced, and that is somebody, a young 15, 16-year-old who's doing some work experience, and they don't realize that putting your hands in your pockets doesn't look like you're very engaged. Or you can go on the other side of that, and you've got a experienced teacher, 45, 50 years old, who's been doing it for a number of years and just isn't willing to adapt and change. And the experience I've had with that is you go into a school and you see maybe we're doing CPD and we're upskilling a teacher, and we've got a fantastic mentor in there who knows really good practice, and the teacher is doing a gymnastics lesson, and the way that the gymnastics teacher is doing it is very static. It's like 30 children lining up, waiting to vault over one horse, for example, in a gymnastics lesson. And our coach will go in and um, try and work with them in terms of, right, how else could we do this? Could there be more lines? Could it be more of a carousel setup or whatever that is? And if you don't have that, what we had is this teacher who was just so stuck in their ways. They didn't want to change. And I think when you come across that, it's important that you still challenge it, because if you let that slide, not only is it that teacher isn't getting the education they need, but it's the kids as well. The kids aren't getting the best experience in PE. So I guess for me, bad habits can come from both sides from that experience. And I personally, for myself, my own journey is I came in with like I was always trying 100%, and I don't think I've ever met a coach or a PE teacher who turns up to the session and doesn't put in 100%. They don't try their best, and I think that's partly because once you get in front of kids, almost have this natural responsibility to make sure the session is as good as it can be. But if you don't know your bad habits and you still put them in, then that's doesn't mean it's always the best session just because you're trying your best. And that's something that I try and instill into all of our coaches is that if you have a session and you think it was amazing, that almost concerns me more than when a coach doesn't spot the mistakes they've made, because I always think that you could there's always somebody else in the world who could deliver that session better than you, or it might be behavior management or whatever it is, where you've really struggled with a session and you just don't know, there's no possible way you could possibly help these children and make sure the session runs smoother from a behavior management point of view. And that's where I'd always challenge somebody to go, I I challenge you to say that there is not somebody in the world who would be able to manage that group more effectively than you did in that session. And it's just that self-reflection. And then also from picking up bad habits, that can also come from poor role models. And I remember when I first started coaching, and I was working for a company, and I was what 16, 17 at the time, and I've gone into this good setting, good professional setting, well known setting, and I'm seeing like experienced 30-year-old coaches who are leaning against the wall, they're putting their feet up against the wall, and their arms are crossed, they've just letting the kids play matches. And what happened? Unexperienced me seeing these positive role models, thinking, right, okay, this is what we do here. We look relaxed, we look chilled, so I'm doing it. Then what happens? The manager comes in and he pulls me up. Hey, why are we leaning against the wall? Obviously, I turn around and see the other two role models as they were. They've stopped doing it, and I just look like the one who was doing it. And it's a complete inexperience, these bad habits. But fortunately, that manager brought me up on it, and I've never leant against the wall ever again whilst I've been coaching. So it is important that we do let people know, and we don't hold back from that. It's obviously got to be done in the right way. But if if you do have poor role models, people think they're doing the right things. It's almost like a culture, and you get into it, and then it doesn't take long until that that bad habit is picked up, and you're like, oh, okay, right. So they weren't positive role models, as much as I thought they were. And then from there as well, just low expectations. So you might be working in a school, say you're a PE teacher, 10, 15 years you've been in this school, and the head teacher just isn't interested in sport. They don't understand what good PE looks like. And if you haven't got somebody asking you or showing you what the expectations need to be within PE or whatever it is, then that can make you challenge, not understand the bad habits you've got as well. You might just keep turning up to deliver a lesson, and you haven't actually planned it. You haven't even looked through the curriculum. You haven't looked at what is meant to be happening that day, and that can just come from poor management as well, and just a low expectation. And so things just get more and more relaxed until they get to a point where it really has a big detriment on the children. And that's ultimately the main thing that we talk about bad habits. Yes, it's one thing is that if a line is a little bit wobbly when you line out a football pitch or whatever it is, and it's when it then slips into these really bad habits where we're not planning the lessons and we're not following the curriculum, where children are really having a detrimental impact, a negative impact then on their learning because of the sports educator in that setting. Now, the second bit I wanted to talk about is what bad habits really bother me. And there's quite a few bad habits. And actually, when I coach now and I watch myself back, I still have bad habits. But I hate how much I say and when I'm coaching. And it's not to say, right, all of these bad habits, nobody has, but it's just thinking about, right, what bad habits are there and which ones you can easily change and others take a little bit longer to move out of. First one for me is planning, and that is not just in have you planned a PE lesson or a after school club or a lunch club, whatever it is. It's when and that is part of it, but when a coach turns up to a session and the warm up is all about dribbling in basketball, and they're dribbling, and then the main session is a little passing game. Oh, great! And then they go into a match, and it's all about shooting, and it's like, what? Have you even thought about the flow of the lesson? Have you thought about the lesson objectives? It doesn't matter whether you're working with four kids at a very relaxed after school club, 30 children in the strictest primary school with real clear curriculums. Well, it doesn't really matter. Every lesson should have a clear topic and a lesson objective, personally, if you ask me. And the same at holiday camps. I think it's the same principle of planning and having an idea of what you're actually going to teach. And that's where sometimes you haven't even planned your session. And sometimes you see it where it's just, oh, just panicking. They just go for the most basic, boring drill that you might have seen on YouTube 20 years ago, sort of thing. The standard, you know, five kids line up, they pass the ball to the coach sets the ball off, and a player shoots in the goal. You know, it's a really boring um, drill that they haven't even taken 10 seconds to think about what they're going to deliver in that lesson. Th- that and the lesson plan, but then equipment as well, and that's just the little bits. You know, if you talk to really experienced coaches, if they're doing a netball session and they go and get 10 netballs out of the PE shed and three of them are not quite pumped up properly, best coaches well, they'll always have a pump in their bag to start with, but then they'll also just be able to they'll just pump up those three netballs, just the quality, and they just know what they're looking for. It will be having all the equipment that you're bringing in a good order, and so if you're bringing bibs to a session, it's like you've got clean bibs and they don't smell really moldy and bad, and that's obviously important. But then another style of bad habits that bother me is the visual, and I touched on it earlier. Hands in pockets or leaning against the fence, just those first impressions that you're going to see from a coach. Now, for me, as a manager in a business, I can rock up to any session and I get a picture of what's going on before somebody spots me, and then I'm not saying they always do, but sometimes it just changes what they were doing once they see a manager or head teacher come to pass or whatever it is, and that 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 photograph often shows you know exactly what was going on. You can understand what it was. Photograph says 1,000 words, and sometimes that's the case, but also you have to be really wary that if you turn up in the middle of a school day where a sports educator is working for six hours and you see 1 second of that, it's not fair to expect that that's exactly how the day was the whole time. And that might be you see really good practice, doesn't mean it was really good the whole time, or you see bad practice, doesn't mean it was bad the whole time. It's just a snapshot of what you've seen, but often it will show you a lot. Are the cones the right colors? Are the balls pumped up? All that sort of stuff. Well, you can't hide that. You either did it or you didn't. So I think those first impressions are important. Also clothing. If you see a coach and they've got massive hooped earrings hanging down, or they're a teacher who's wearing jeans whilst they're delivering, or whatever it might be. It's like, does it look like that sports educator could be in the session right now? That's the question I always ask. Do they look like they could participate in sport right now? If they do, they're normally onto a good thing. But it's those other things you see outside it. And when the kids see a sports educator who looks sporty and is ready for sport, it just creates the right tone for that lesson, for that session. And then also on that, it's just enthusiasm. If you turn up to a lesson and you're seeing the teacher being really enthusiastic, really positive, getting lots of smiles, lots of positive feedback to the kids, you can't hide that does just create a really positive atmosphere for the kids. And when the kids are enjoy and they're having a positive time, they're enjoying the session, then that's going to be so positive for them, not only short term in terms of enjoying that lesson, but medium term of enjoying sport in school, and then long term of them going into becoming an adult who enjoys sport and is active. And that's obviously important as well. And then it's just the little things as well. And again, I've mentioned a few things like, are the cones stacked? So we always give out 20 yellow cones, 20 orange, 20 white cones. And if I need to go and grab a stack of cones out of a coach's bib bag, and it's like, I call them rainbow cones, well, they could have, it doesn't take long at the end of a session to just ask all the kids to put the orange cones on this one, yellow cones on this one, white cones on this one, and then you've got a whole stack of cones that just look, it looks smart. You know, you've got 20 yellow, 20 white, 20 orange. It's those little things. It's um if I'm setting up a pitch, for example, and it's like I'm setting up a basketball pitch or a football pitch, is the outline of that pitch, are all the cones the same color or are they not? You know, it's all these little things that don't really, does it affect the session massively? No. But does it look like a really well organized good session as a parent walks past or as a head teacher walks past? Well, yes, it does. Finally, I just wanted to talk about my own experience of learning about my own bad habits. Again, I didn't know these were bad habits that I had, but I went through a learning stage of understanding about my bad habits. One of them were my lines that I would put down weren't straight. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like a complete snake of a line going down. But it was when I put them down, I'd walk forwards, put the cone down, walk forwards, put the cone down, and then after you put the 6 or 7 cones down, you look back and you think, oh, okay, line's not perfect. And someone said to me, oh, who put that line down? Stevie Wonder. And you know, obviously, I then sort of look back at it. Oh, God, it's only a little bit. But then he said, look, mate, just turn around when you're putting the cones down, and you'll be able to see it, you'll be able to make it a straight line. So, okay, so I did it, and it just made a straight line. And you know, this guy, he wasn't having a go at me or anything. Just a little joke that he threw in there, and it just meant that I could. It's just a way that I learned that it's important that your lines look straight, especially in that elite environment. Um, then secondly, just shadowing. I'm always a strong advocate of just being around people who are better than you, and whether that's work experience when you're younger or just taking the time out of your school day to go and shadow the PE lead and see how they deliver a PE lesson, or even watching videos on YouTube or whatever it is, just hours shadowing good coaches and seeing what they do. And it in doing that, you spot the smaller things. You spot that before a session they have put out their bibs in color piles so that when they come to it, it's ready to go. Or it might be they know they're going to go into a ball each game, so they get all the balls out and put them on top of a cone so that when the kids come out, they know not to knock the balls over, and they know that when it's their turn to actually go and get a ball, you don't have 30 kids all crowding around a bag trying to get one ball out of the bag. That's always messy, you know. It's just those little things that I spotted growing up. And then finally, just turning straight, just somebody coming up to you, someone who's a manager or whatever it is, and they just come and say that, like I said earlier, stop leaning against the wall. And you know, that's how I learned about my bad habits. So I'd always encourage you to get other people to watch you, be very open to learning, and whether that's at a holiday camp, a sports, like an after school club, a PE lesson, whatever that is, it's just getting people around you who are honest and deliver that feedback in a nice way that allows you to develop as a sports educator. Now, this is obviously the first podcast, and I think for me it's important that yes, we talk about the sector, the challenges that we have in it, but I really just wanted to put a platform out there which gives people the opportunity to just talk about the sector. It's not always learning or anything like that. It's just finding out more about other people in the sector. And so a real challenge for me as I grow this podcast will be obviously getting more people to listen to it. So if you have enjoyed listening through this first podcast, please do share it. I'm really keen to get a few more guests on further down the line, but also these solo podcasts, I really enjoy the format of that as well. So hopefully maybe from today's podcast, you've seen the bad habits are easily changed. You might even think about how you will tell others about bad habits and how you're going to understand your own bad habits and how you could potentially improve on them. But let's be honest, a lot, we're all in it for the right reasons. We're all trying to give children a positive experience in sport, and the more we do that as a community, as an industry, the bigger the impact has on children across the country. So if you're in this sector, firstly, just pause, say thank you to yourself, to pat yourself on the back, because it's not an easy job. It's definitely not an easy job in winter when it's cold and you've got Christmas rehearsals going on and you get thrown out of the hall and you haven't planned the right session. Whatever it is there's always a lot of challenges in this industry and you're not alone. And yeah, I think hopefully from today's podcast you sort of get to know a little bit more about who we are, what we're doing. I'm not even sure if I introduced myself earlier, but my name is Charlie Hiscox. This podcast is going to go out every week, and we want to get the the best sport coaching podcast on Apple, on Spotify, and all the other platforms. Plus, the podcast is recorded as well, so you might be watching this. Hello, if you're watching this. But yeah, this goes out on YouTube as well, so feel free to subscribe there. But the big thing, there's one thing you can do for me today is just share it. If you're on LinkedIn, please share it. If you're in a group chat of coaches, just drop it into the group chat. And yeah, let's make this industry a better place.